Good evening. Today is November 23rd, 2020, and this is the 28th episode of New Paradigms. I am your host, Sargis Sangari. My guest today is Jennifer Nevins, who is unique in Chicago political punditry, a key supporter of President Donald Trump and his America First agenda. Jennifer served as a Trump delegate to the RNC in 2016 and began her foray into the political commentary from the convention floor. She describes herself as a conservative nationalist who votes for Republicans because, generally speaking, they more closely align themselves with economic and social freedom. A stalwart critic of the Illinois leadership and the GOP, Jennifer has written key articles but targeted on the failures. Jennifer's articles can be read on the Illinois Review online. Jennifer, it's a pleasure to have you with us tonight. But before we begin, it's unfortunate that we had another bloody weekend in Chicago with 50 shot and 5 fatally, which marks the 700th homicide in Chicago to date for 2020. I know this was a big issue for me on the campaign trail, and it still is, because if we cannot solve the issues that we are dealing with in Chicago, with all these fatalities taking place on a weekly basis, then regardless of which political party is in charge, we are going to be spiraling out of control when it comes to what we have to do for our future. So with that said, I'm sorry to bring you on this sad note, but I know that you're coming to us remotely. That's why we have your photo up, and you have the floor.
Yeah, on that topic of the violence in the city of Chicago, unfortunately, what we're seeing increasingly is not just in Chicago, but in New York, Seattle, Portland. These cities are becoming wastelands. What's happening, the businesses are completely closing, the crime is spiraling out of control, and the Democrat leadership, and again, it's always Democrat leadership, they have absolutely no interest in solving the real problems in their cities. And it's criminal. They're not people of goodwill. I hate to put it so starkly, but when you look at their absolute refusal to support the police, when you look at their absolute refusal to address the real reasons that crime is spiraling in these wasteland cities, there really isn't a whole lot of other conclusion that you can draw from this. So it is really a tragic situation. And frankly, I don't have much faith that it's going to be solved under any Democrat administration. So.
No, look, it's unfortunate. When we had the, back to blue events with law and order candidates that ran on the Republican side, I was asked when we were holding one in my district, should we contact the incumbent to come? I said, why not? I said she should come, and if she does come, then receive her with honors, and because we need to back our police officers. She chose not to, because the first thing that was asked when the Back to Blue events sponsor and founder Ashley Ramos contacted them, they said go to our website and fill out how many people are going to be at that event. So because if the estimate is less than 100 people, the incumbent's not going to even bother to come. So it had nothing to do with the fact that we're trying to support our law enforcement. It is unfortunate, but it's a reality, and I don't think we're going to see anything change when it comes to our suburbs. But with that said, I know that you recently were in Wisconsin. I do know, elections are still in the process of taking a look at what the court challenges are. Tell me a little bit about what you were doing up there, and then what we learned, some of the lessons learned from Wisconsin.
Yeah, I was up in Milwaukee. There are currently 2 cities. The Trump campaign paid $3 million for there to be a recount, and not just a recount, but this is actually supposed to be more of an audit, where they don't run everything back through the machines. They're looking at each ballot. And so my part in it, I was observing absentee ballots only. That is what my role was there. And so essentially what happened in Milwaukee is there was one Trump representative per table. This is a huge difference between that and Georgia. I have to tell you, it just showed me what a farce Georgia was, because there was one representative per 10 tables. And I have to tell you, Sargis, I had enough trouble focusing on one table. So it really brought home to me what an absolute farce Georgia had to have been, because there is no way you could have any meaningful observation with 10 tables. So that being said, I was observing absentee ballots, and there are 3 reasons why you can disregard an absentee ballot. One of them is having different colored ink from the signature to the address. Another one is something called indefinite confinement, and the Trump campaign was able to get these removed. And that's for people who are using the excuse of COVID to send in an absentee ballot. And then there is if you do not have an application with the ballot. I was observing the first category and the third category. We had 22 ballots that were rejected in the 90 minutes that I was observing one ward's count. To put that in perspective, there were approximately 40 tables. So if you extrapolate that out, you say that there were 22 ballots rejected in 90 minutes at one table, and you're counting for 12 hours, and there's 40 tables, you kind of can get a sense of perhaps how many ballots were going to be rejected or objected to. What was interesting about this, I was heartened by the GOP participation that they allowed, but again, we were placed 6 feet away from these counters with plexiglass and masks. There was no need for us to be 6 feet away. And I have to tell you, it's very hard to see a ballot from 6 feet away. And so you really get the sense, Sargis, that this is just an exercise in, well, let's give them what they want. Let's go ahead and do this recount. We're not going to do it with full transparency, and we're going to make it as difficult as we can. And that is really the idea that I came away with at that recount. And to be very frank with you, I do not have high hopes for it, just like these other recounts have been more or less a dog and pony show.
No, look, I agree because I've seen what the issues are that we're dealing with. I mean, we've seen it here. I keep on getting affidavits myself that are being submitted to me constantly on these particular issues. As an example, when we started this process, this wasn't just an affidavit that was given to me just today, and it's talking about as of October 29, 2020, all voters who were sent a mail-in ballot but didn't bring it with them to the polling place were allowed to vote regular versus provisional. Producing the mail-in ballot was not required. The judges were told mark a yes on their screen where it asks, is the voter returning the ballot to you, in the quotes. And then, of course, which of course is not true, but they still marked it. So this is just one of the affidavits that we received. People ask me, how come, Colonel, you're getting these affidavits? And I told them the reason I'm getting them is because after we went through the process of the election, after everything was done, we ended up having individuals coming to us and saying, look, there's all these issues that you were dealing with across the board on possible fraud in elections. And we ended up working on trying to get that information on behalf of the Illinois GOP guys that ran, and pretty much everybody who was not an incumbent lost.
Yes, and we have dominion in this state. And I will also point out to you that in 2018, the Cook County commissioners, and we had Tim Schneider was on that, and so was Sean Morrison, they approved dominion for use in Chicago. I don't know if those two voted for it, but it was approved by that board for use in Illinois. And we had some very, very close races in this state for rep. We actually would have flipped the House had our close Illinois races, and that would be Jeannie Ives' race, that would be Jim Oberweis's race, and Esther Joy King's race. They lost fairly narrowly, but we have a dominion system in place. The Illinois GOP is not going to do a blessed thing about it. They're the most neutered organization that you're ever going to come across, worse than the other GOP organizations that we're seeing, and that's a really low bar. So I'm very sorry that that happened to you, but again, we have nobody in this state willing to take the fight anywhere. So yeah, it's really, really unfortunate.
No, I mean, look, we can be critics of the Illinois GOP. I've been their critic. I ran here. I ran with $43,000 in my coffers. I did submit a budget to the Illinois GOP early in the year. Didn't even get a reply on the email, and
Right,
basically I laid out what it would cost to win. I wasn't saying
right.
that you have to give me this money. I was saying this is what it would cost to win. So with small donations, $43,000, I got to 100 update right now. I think is 106,000 votes north, basically. We had initially in one day we were up to 109,000 votes. The next day we were dropped to 105,000 votes. So we lost
Yeah, that's
4,800 votes
interesting.
somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it
So
funny how the GOP, and I'm sure your opponent, Schakowsky, was not losing votes. And you bring up a really good point. You can submit things to the Illinois GOP all day long. I don't want to get, too far in the weeds about the Illinois GOP because we're dealing with, Trump's election here. But the thing of it is when you have an organization like the Illinois GOP, they have no money. Why do they have no money? Because nobody in their right mind is going to donate to them because they're a completely untrustworthy organization. So I think that it's really any candidate running in this state is on their own. You are completely on your own. You're not going to get any help from any of them. So it is an uphill battle in this state.
well, it is. Look, you have to, and we don't help the we didn't help the current POTUS either because it
No.
where is all the so-called issues with election fraud coming? It's coming from those institutionalized cities where one party has
Right.
ruled, whether it be Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit. So if
Right.
the intent was to help the current POTUS, then you've got to go after the machine. People ask me, why are you running against a minority whip who's got all this money? And I said, because you have to at least attack this machine. You got to show that you could do it. Look, with $43,000 to 106,
Yeah. Whoa.
thousand votes, that's not, that's pretty good work. But
Yeah.
during the year I ran, my name wasn't even on the Illinois GOP website. Jeannie Ives' name wasn't
Right.
there. So,
Bingo.
organizationally, there's one party here. The other party has to establish itself. And I would say we probably don't have an organizational structure yet. That's one of the reasons I've kind of taken the lead on at least getting these affidavits and then getting some of our GOP leads together and the individuals who lost. I've contacted Esther. Jeannie's on the email thread. I mean, we even had Dan Patlack. We had Anthony Beckman. We've had Frank DeFranco and close races. So you would hope that the party would have put the lawsuit forward. Mark Curran came out, at
Right.
least put a letter together that they went to the U.S. attorney here. And we're working now with Rudy Giuliani and also Sidney Powell. And I think
Good.
we need to get into a little bit of an explanation as to how that team is structured or is not structured. But we're working with both of them as far as trying to get their information up top. And I know you have a little bit of an insight on exactly if folks are a little bit confused about, is Sidney Powell on the team or is she not on the team? What are some of the steps that have recently been taken in that capacity?
Right. I think that what is very unfortunate is when that statement was released by the campaign, Jenna Ellis released a statement, it read pretty cold, and people read that, and I don't really necessarily blame them. They read it as a disavowal of Sidney. The problem with that statement, it was just a statement of fact. She never was a paid member of that legal team, but it didn't have any caveats such as this is not to be interpreted as a disavowal of anything that Sidney Powell's doing. Unfortunately, they didn't put that line in there. Later, they came back and clarified the situation, and it turns out, of course, that it is not a disavowal in any way of what she's doing. The simple fact is Sidney Powell is handling a criminal case. She is going in directions that the Trump campaign cannot get into. If they did, they opened themselves up to enormous lawsuits because Sidney Powell is going after some very big fish. And Donald Trump is a wealthy man, even still, even though he's lost a lot of money while he was president. Sidney Powell does not have deep pockets. And so it's very important that the two are kept separate, and not only for that reason, but there's other legal reasons as well. So it makes perfect sense. And in the meantime, she has come out, General Flynn has come out, Lynn Wood has come out, and have said, I am still carrying on my work. The campaign has not disavowed me. I have never taken any money from them. We are working together, but not officially. And so I think that everybody, hopefully by now, has taken a chill pill on that. Of course, the media is still running with it, and they want nothing more than to make it look like there is a schism in Trump's legal team when that is not the case.
No, that is not the case. And when we communicate, I don't communicate with them separately. They're on the same email thread.
Right.
Both Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell. So when I send information there, you know, with the other Republicans are courtesy copied, they're both on the thread. So that doesn't change. I do know that there's been some other information that just came to us just before we started the show, as to what is happening between the Trump and Biden transition process. Could you go into that a little bit and clarify what is the latest?
Yes, the latest thing bomb that just hit that got everybody also confused and upset is Trump announced that he is allowing the GSA, which is an organization that is in charge of helping transitions happen. He's allowing the first steps of the transition for the Biden team to take place. Well, when people read that, of course, you're like, oh my gosh, you know, is he conceding what's going on? In that same statement, he said, look, our fight is continuing. I think we're going to prevail, he says, but this person in charge of the transition on my end is being threatened. Of course, we know that this is what the left does. They harass, they threaten, they intimidate. And he said, I'm going to let this go forward right now. And, you know, states have certified Biden. It's very unfortunate. He is in the process of moving toward being the official president-elect. He is not yet, but he is moving toward that. So he is allowing the initial stages to go forward. It means nothing other than what he just said. So everybody needs to understand, and he reiterated very clearly, this has absolutely nothing to do with the fight, and I do think we still will prevail. So.
No, look, it's going to go through a process, and you know that's the beauty of our country, that process is given, although it's in a really short timeline, crunch time. But you know that's why you have you know Americans like Sidney Powell doing a yeoman's work out of her own pocket, trying to help in this process. I mean, before we began our show, we had a discussion. I showed you what they had done to one of my yard signs here.
Right.
And absolutely how they had just defiled it, and at the same time what they had done to Jeannie Ives, you know, yard signs, and you see it. And I'm a person who was just running. Actually, the Chicago Tribune had looked at me as a moderate. The Daily Herald had looked at me as more of a moderate guy. And the fact that they still attacked it, why? Because I wore a red tie. You know, it's amazing. It's just there's no capacity for the echo chamber to be able to breathe outside of its own capacity. So because of that, it continues to put this country in the position it is today. I came here as an immigrant. I don't remember ever when I was here, my neighborhoods being divided like they are now being divided.
Right.
And is unfortunate, but you keep on dividing America into smaller segments of pieces, you're not going to have an America. And you're going to destroy the country.
Yes, and that is what they're hell-bent on doing, Sargis. You know, even, you know, it's crazy. Even 4 years ago, I wouldn't have said this. And Lord knows I was a huge opponent of Hillary, and I knew that she was really, really bad news. But I wouldn't have said this. We weren't facing, at that time, at least we didn't think we were facing, a leftist, Marxist horde that had the attitude that we are going to conquer you. We are going to destroy you. We are not interested in any kind of a dialogue. We're not interested in any kind of teamwork. And the joke of it all is Biden is running around. Well, he doesn't run, he hobbles. He's a feeble old man, but he is hobbling around saying, well, it's time for unity. There will be no unity with you, Biden, none whatsoever, because you have absolutely no intention of extending a genuine olive branch to anybody. Of course, we wouldn't take it anyway because you're stealing the election from our president. But the left has no interest. If they could ship us all off to gulags, if they, honest to God, I mean this, if they could shoot us, they would. And so what it comes down to is you were dealing with a very, very nasty group of people. Not maybe every Democrat voter. I will put the caveat on that. But the Democrat leadership and their soldiers and their candidates, yeah, that is what you're dealing with. Very nasty people. And it is not a fight. I'll get spiritual here for just a moment. It is not a fight against flesh and blood, though. This is a real spiritual battle. I think that people of all faiths can kind of come to that conclusion, that this is not in any way normal, that there is something else going on in the heavenlies. It's a very satanic thing. I felt it in Milwaukee. In Michigan, I read of a story about a woman saying there was such a demonic presence when people were counting these votes. Very, very nefarious. And that is why I think we all understand that all these recounts and all this procedural gobbledygook, in the end, it's going to the Supreme Court, and they're going to rule. Either they're going to hew to the Constitution, like they tell us. I'm talking about the Republican appointees. They say that they are, originalists. Either they're going to abide by that or they're not. If they don't, obviously, that's a catastrophe of immeasurable, can't even describe it. If they do, then that's what they're going to do, and we're saved, although it's going to be very messy. But in the end, it's coming down to SCOTUS. And in the end, the only way that we're going to win, basically, is understanding that either God is going to make this happen, or he's not. Because we're not dealing with an even playing field here. There's no way fair. We have the GOP against us. We were sold out down the river in Georgia and in Michigan by Republicans who certified the vote. Think about that. Certified known fraud. Republicans did us in. So this is not just Democrats, I have to say. And this is Sidney Powell is pointing this out. These are Republicans and Democrats that are trying to give us the shaft, and that's what we're up against. So that's where I look at it and I say, if we prevail, it's going to be because God helps us and sees the righteousness of our cause. So.
No, look, it takes individuals that get into this fight out of their own pocket to be able to help out. I stood on a grassy knoll for at a gathering with the Republicans. It was a Trump rally, and this was, I think it was in the August duration. If I find the video, we'll put it up, or September maybe it was. And I did say, I said, don't be surprised. You're going to see a lot of people that were standing by the current POTUS will leave his side. Because you kind of know the nature of the person. It's really the nature of the beast. Look, I lived through a revolution. I left Iran after a revolution. There's absolutely nothing that I saw there that I don't see here. And the way initially they went after the police, they discredited the police, they replaced them with over there what was POTUS. Now you had even in in Washington State trying to replace them with their own people. But after you defund the police, so there's nothing that we saw that was different over there. Same thing. The same students that the Shah of Iran has sent to the United States to got educated about how the king is evil, that socialism for everybody. They studied here in Berkeley. They went back. They toppled the government. They linked up with the Islamists there to do that. And then the second they had a cheat victory, the Islamists took the guns and killed all the socialists. So, there's at least a pattern that I saw. I lived through it.
Yeah.
And I've lived it. And look what has happened. Look at Iran, where it is all these years. And now they're about to sell the entire country. The Islamic Republic of Iran is about to sell it to the Chinese, the same Chinese who just recently came out and gave a plan to how our future foreign policy should be. And for me, look, I saw these guys operating, like the Antifa guys. I saw them operating in Syria. I was running the Assyrian multi-force structures to help keep the root of Christianity alive. And you mentioned about the demonic aspect of it. In 2015, one of my commanders was ambushed by a group of socialist Kurds. And at that time, Antifa was there working with the YPG, flying their flags. Both European and American Antifa didn't go there because they had nothing better to do. They went there to learn the trade craft, to apply somewhere. As I told folks, you don't build a weapon to put on the shelf. You build it to use it, to see how it operates. And same thing. And a lot of these people were the same individuals who floated from those, anti-Wall Street organizations to what became the organization that when you were a delegate in 2016, were trying to destabilize some of the rallies that President Trump
Yes.
was holding at that, well, actually, Donald Trump, the candidate, was holding at that time. And then now to where they started burning the cities and attacking all the economic zone and opportunities that the POTUS had put together. But we are where we are, and we have to get somewhere. You say it's going to get into the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
What do you think about the timeline? Do you have any understanding? I know that most of the filings have to be done by this Friday. If there's any lawsuits out there, is there anything else?
Right. The only thing I know, there's so much conflicting information. I know that the Third Circuit, the Pennsylvania case, was presented today at 4 o'clock to the circuit court that, of course, Alito presides over, but Alito doesn't judge that case. There are 3 judges that decided, mixed Republican judges on that, Republican appointed judges and Democrat appointed judges on that court. Once that, but Alito, since he's presiding over it, that case will be expedited, so it won't be languishing there. They'll make the decision on it. If it's an unfavorable decision, and frankly, I expect that it will be, it's going to go, that's the next stop is SCOTUS. There is no other court. So that is going to go through. The Pennsylvania court case is going to be the first to be heard. When that happens, and Alito has a real axe to grind with this one, since basically they told Alito to pound sand in Pennsylvania. So it's, we're hoping and praying that that case is the first state to drop, because if we can get momentum with one state, we're hoping it creates a bit of a momentum for the next stop, which most people believe is Georgia. You knock those 2 states down, we're three votes away, actually 2 votes away from getting Biden off of his 270. So the next state after that, where the smart money is on Wisconsin. I don't think Wisconsin, the recount, is going to do it. Frankly, I don't have any faith in it. Even though I think a lot of ballots are being tossed out, I have to tell you, you've got Democrats running the show up there. And it's just the way it is. But that goes to, I believe that's Amy Coney Barrett. So I think the first thing we're going to see is Pennsylvania, and the third court decision, circuit court decision, is going to be made probably by Friday, and then that's going to go like a rocket ship to the SCOTUS. We do not know if the SCOTUS is going to listen to this case. I know that sounds bizarre. There is a possibility that they will punt. If they do, I can't tell you how much of a betrayal that will be. But if they don't punt, we need 4 judges to hear this. If they don't, I think we have a very fair chance of getting the Pennsylvania state tossed back to Trump. So that's, but we are on a tight timeline, but we really do have till December 14th. Just because states are certifying right now doesn't mean anything. That can be uncertified. So we have until December 14th. It's not the end of this week like some people are saying. So it is a tight timeline, but the legal team is well aware of it.
Jennifer, you said it could be uncertified. Can we get into the detail a little bit, or is it?
Yeah, it can be uncertified by the legislature of the states. So we had Michigan, a GOP trader today, sign off on that, and it was certified. The legislator, though, the House and the Senate in all these states. They, on December 14th, is when everything is made official. So even though these election officials certify, that's not the end of the road. Media likes to say it is, but it's not the end of the road. And the courts can also nullify. They can nullify the results of an election. So people need to understand that as well. So these little preliminary certifications really is what it is. They're preliminary certifications, are not the end game.
Well, they're not the end game. Unfortunately, I hope that people don't settle for short-term political win for a political party and then bury U.S. future for decades to come. It is unfortunate. With that said, I know we have a short time remaining on the time for us. We're definitely going to want you to come back again to brief us, give us some more updates as this thing goes forward. if people want to read more about you and what you've said before or your written work, can they go to follow you or read about your articles and the work you have done?
Yeah. What they can do, the best course of action is to Google. You know, I just got rid of my Facebook page as kind of a protest against King Zuckerberg. But you can go ahead and you can Google Jennifer Nevins. You can put in Jennifer Nevins WTTW, and you will see Chicago Tonight appearances. Beyond the Beltway appearances will come up. You can also go to Illinois Review and type in Jennifer Nevins and read some of my articles.
Jennifer, thank you very much for coming today. We wanted to get a perspective of what was happening in Wisconsin.
Right.
You got the last word. If there's anything else that you want to add before we sign off tonight.
Yeah, I would like to urge everybody to go to defendingtherepublic.org. I'm going to repeat that, defendingtherepublic.org. That is Sidney Powell's donation page. She has a legal team of her own. They need to get paid. She's got IT specialists. I urge everyone in the sound of my voice to make a donation of any size to to her cause.
Okay, and then that is, again, defendtherepublic.org, and they can make donations there directly to support the cause with
Yes.
Sidney Powell.
Yes.
Jennifer, thank you very much. With that said, we will keep the country in our prayers. We'll keep you in the prayers. You're doing a yeoman's job. Please reach out if there's any issues or anything you need us to help you with. And if you got it, like I said, if you have to bring you back earlier than what we are expecting, then give us a call anytime, okay?
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, and God bless. And this is New Paradigms.